Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, now in the southern province of Tindouf, had bilateral talks with the President of Mauritania, Mr. Mohamed Ould Cheikh Al Ghazouani, and where they will inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of a number of strategic projects between the two countries. The Director General of the World Health Organization has said that the health and humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, subjected to a barbaric Israeli aggression, is inhuman. The representative of the Polisario Front in Spain, Abdullah Arabi, rejected the latest declarations of Spanish Premier, in which he reaffirmed the support of his government to the so-called plan of autonomy presented by Morocco to Western Sahara. This is Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, now in the southern province of Tindouf, had bilateral talks with the President of Mauritania, Mr. Mohamed Ould Cheikh Al Ghazouani. President Tebboune, accompanied by his Mauritanian counterpart, will inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of a number of strategic projects between the two countries in this border region. On his arrival in Tindouf, the President of the Republic, accompanied by the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, General Said Shengriha, was welcomed at the airport by the local civilian and military authorities. Speaking about the Algerian-Mauritanian trade exchange, the President of the Algerian-Mauritanian Business Council, Youssef Ghazi, said the following.
In fact, the level of the Algerian-Mauritanian trade exchanges has increased in the past from about $50 million to $200 million, which is encouraging to move forward towards an economic complementarity between the two brotherly countries.
For his part, the President of the Algerian-Mauritanian Friendship Group, Addah Mustafa Suhaib, spoke about the major important role of the Tindouf-Zouirat road.
There is one thing that the peoples of the two states have dreamed about, which is the Tindouf-Zouirat road, an important project that will allow the flow of the Algerian products into the African continent via Mauritania. The launching of the Tindouf-Zouirat road is a major bridge for friendship between the two countries.
Now, Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbaoui chaired Wednesday a government meeting devoted to examining the preliminary draft law on the Highway Code and to presentations relating to the digitization, labour and higher education sectors, according to a press release issued by the Prime Minister's office, Said Bougazi reports.
The government examined the preliminary draft law on the Highway Code, which aims to define the rules governing the organization of road traffic and the elements of the National Strategy for Road Safety and Accident Prevention. The government also heard the presentation on the state of progress of the process of digitizing town planning documents by establishing a legal framework to support and develop electronic media dedicated to the digitization of all stages relating to the submission of applications and the processing and issuing of these documents. The government also continued to examine the progress made in applying the provisions of the law relating to the exercise of trade union rights and the main lines of the proposed future strategy concerning holders of doctorate degrees, focusing on the mechanisms needed to organize this highly qualified university training and ensure its adaptation to the needs of the national economy.
The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, has held talks in the Jordanian capital Amman with Jordanian Prime Minister Bishr al-Ghazouani, according to a press release from the lower house of parliament. During the meeting, the two parties underlined the brotherly and historic relations that bind the two brotherly countries and their commitment to strengthening and developing them in all areas in the best interest of both countries. in accordance with the aspirations of the leaders of both countries. The APN chairman also met in Amman with the Speaker of the Jordanian Senate, Faisal Al-Faiz, the Jordanian Health Minister, Firaz Al-Hawari, and the Jordanian Minister of Education and Higher Education, Azmi Muhabza, and the Jordanian Minister of Agriculture, Khalid Hnaifat. As you followed in our top stories, the representative of the Polisario Front in Spain, Abdullah Arabi, rejected the latest declarations of Spanish Premier during his visit in Morocco, in which he reaffirmed the support of his government to the so-called Plan of Autonomy presented by Morocco to Western Sahara. Now, the Ministry of Health in the Gaza Strip today announced that 29,410 people had been killed since the start of the Zionist aggression launched on October 7th on the besieged Palestinian enclave. In a statement, it also reported a total of 97 deaths in the last 24 hours and 69,465 injured. At least 19 civilians were killed and dozens were injured overnight in Israeli strikes on the Nusayrat refugee camp and the Zaytun neighborhood in the besieged Gaza Strip. Zionist warplanes launched aerial raids targeting the home of the Dalis family west of the Nusayrat camp, resulting in the killing of 17 civilians and the wounding of dozens of others. The UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food, Michael Fakhri, has warned that the Gaza Strip has never experienced such levels of hunger, saying that the Zionist entity's intention is to punish all Palestinians simply because they are Palestinians. The details in this report.
The UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food said that the Zionist entity uses hunger as a weapon in its attacks on the Gaza Strip, which has never known such a level of hunger, underlining that the occupation wanted to punish all the Palestinians simply because they are Palestinians. Even before the Zionist occupation forces moved towards Rafah, we were sounding the alarm about the fact that every single person in Gaza was hungry and that at least a quarter of the population was starving and that famine was imminent, he said, adding that the aid that is reaching Gaza is not enough to meet the needs of the population. He continued, even if there is a ceasefire today, the impact will still be visible. It affects generations because many children have been affected. So the key thing to remember is that more than 1 million children live in Gaza and their future is at stake. 335 children are at risk of permanent physical and cognitive impairment. The expert noted, however, that the UN can do nothing at this stage and that the international community is not sufficiently organized to bring pressure on the Zionist entity, which has been carrying out a savage aggression against the Palestinian enclave since 7th October 2023.
The Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has said that the health and humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, subjected to a barbaric Israeli aggression, is inhuman. Tedros, outraged at a regular press conference in Geneva, said, "What kind of world do we live in when people cannot get food and water, and when people won't or who can't even walk aren't treated?" He said, quote, "What kind of world do we live in when health workers risk being bombed when they carry out the work? What kind of world do we live in when hospitals have to close because there is no electricity or medicine to save patients and they are targeted by the military?" End of quote. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, has warned that food insecurity in the north of the Gaza Strip has reached an extremely critical level due to restrictions imposed on the delivery of humanitarian aid. The UN agency said in a press release that the Zionist authorities had refused access to 51% of the missions planned by UNRWA and other humanitarian agencies to deliver aid and carry out assessments in northern Gaza this year. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has described as terrible the situation in Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza noting that what was once a place of healing has now become a place of death due to the continued Israeli aggression. During a visit on Wednesday to the hospital surrounded by the occupying army alongside representatives of the World Health Organization and the Palestinian Red Crescent, the head of humanitarian affairs at OCHA, Jonathan Whittle, said that there are 150 patients in the facility who have no food, water, or electricity. There are very few doctors and nurses left in the hospital. The conditions are appalling. The ambassador of the State of Palestine to the UN, Riyad Mansour, has thanked Algeria for her efforts as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council in saving the life of the Palestinians, notably in Rafah.
I just want to begin by expressing our gratitude to all of my brothers and sisters of the Arab group, demonstrating, as usual, our total unity in calling for an immediate ceasefire. And also I want to express our gratitude to my brother from Algeria and his team, and to the Algerian people and their government, who represented us in an impeccable way in the Security Council, and they gave all the necessary time to all members of the Security Council over the course of the last 3 weeks to sincerely and genuinely try to reach an agreement after 140 days to have an immediate ceasefire to save lives and to save the looming catastrophe above our heads in Rafah, in which approximately 1.5 million Palestinians are cramped in that small area to try to save their lives and to stop the Israeli occupying forces from invading Rafah.
The members of the Arab group expressed regret that a Security Council resolution drafted by Algeria, which sought to reach a ceasefire, could not be approved.
Regrettably, we are extremely disappointed that a resolution was not adopted in spite of the fact that there was very strong support by 13.5, you can say close to 14 members of the Security Council to that call. And we thought that this massive support in the Council, outside the Council, in the General Assembly, in the summit of NAM, in the summit of the Arab countries and the Islamic countries, and in the summit of the African Union just a few days ago, in which everyone is saying ceasefire, ceasefire now. Even high school students in the city of New York, unfortunately, one country does not see it that way, although it is the charter responsibility of the Security Council, whenever there is conflict, whenever there is war, that the first thing that they should ask for is a ceasefire.
UN experts have said that the Israeli occupier must immediately implement a ceasefire and concrete humanitarian measures that prioritize the needs of Palestinian women and girls in accordance with the International Court of Justice ruling of 26 January 2024. Said Bouazi has more details.
The UN experts expressed alarm at the severely limited access to medical treatment and essential supplies in hospitals and reports of pregnant mothers having cesarean sections and injured children undergoing amputations without anesthesia. They called on Zionist authorities to adopt the following 6 gender-responsive measures as a matter of the highest priority in order to address the urgent needs and vulnerable conditions of women and girls in Gaza and the West Bank. These measures include the implementation of an immediate ceasefire, taking all possible measures to avoid civilian casualties and displacement from Gaza, the establishment of a field hospital at the Rafah crossing or offshore from Gaza specifically to provide medical assistance for pregnancy and amputations and protect existing hospitals, facilitating the delivery of food, drinking water, medicines, fuel and other supplies critical to the survival of women and girls, and opening crossing for humanitarian aid and the movement of people, particularly the injured. They also called for prioritizing adequate supplies of menstrual hygiene products for women and girls in Gaza, as well as sexual and reproductive health care and psychosocial support services, and building additional shelters and schools in Gaza so that educational facilities are no longer used as shelters and girls can resume resume their education. The experts urged for providing safe spaces and reparations for women and girls who have survived or are at risk of gender-based violence in Gaza and the West Bank, and ensuring accountability for those who perpetrate violence against them, including Zionist authorities and settlers. They noted that the measures recommended represent practical steps that the Zionist authorities could take to prevent and mitigate further harm to Palestinian women and children, as required by international human rights law and other international obligations.
This is Radio Algeria International. This is the English service, so stay tuned.
The 7th summit meeting of the heads of state and government of the gas exporting countries, Algeria 2024. The Algerian radio is ensuring round-the-clock coverage of the Algeria summit. A special coverage and interviews from several gas-producing and exporting countries will be broadcast by the Algerian radio thanks to its network of correspondents.
محمد بن سلطان مبعوث الإذاعة الجزائرية إلى العاصمة القطرية الدوحة.
سي دكار ثم ناخذ السنغال كريم الحاج محمد وش قالنا راديو ثغنمت.
رابح هوادث مبعوث الإذاعة الجزائرية إلى العاصمة الموريتانية نقشة.
You can follow the event from February 29 to March 2nd on the waves and digital platforms of the Algerian radio. In his speech on the occasion of the launch of the summit's website, the Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, said that the summit is of a paramount importance as it constitutes a platform to strengthen international cooperation. What can you say about this statement?
Firstly, thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you, Mr. Mohammed, in your international Algerian radio. So what gives
the pleasure is ours.
Okay, thank you very much. And what gives this summit more momentum and greater importance as the statement made by Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mr. Mohamed Arkab, regarding the importance of the summit as a platform strengthen international cooperation, and I think it has this significance in several fronts. I'm going to start with the most important of them. The number one is the timing of the summit. Is considered very important and sensible, given two essential stages that the world has gone through, which is the Ukrainian-Russian war, and now the militarization of the Red Sea, as what is happening in Gaza Strip. So, and number two, the opening of the headquarters of the Gas Research Institute of the gas exporting countries forum on the same day that this forum opens.
Okay.
This institute is considered very important in developing technology, expanding scientific and academic cooperation between them, developing training programs, and I think the number three, Algeria is the largest supplier of natural gas in the Mediterranean basin and Africa. And the economic cooperation. So gas exporting countries often rely heavily on international markets for the sale of their natural gas resources. By coming together in summits, these nations can discuss strategies for collaboration, such as joint infrastructure projects or coordinate marketing efforts to enhance their collective economic interests. And the energy security. So natural gas is a vital component of global energy security, so which many countries relying on it for electricity generation, heating, and industrial process. Cooperation among gas exporting nations can help ensure that stable supplies and mitigate the risk between them and the disruption to the global energy market. And
exactly.
The political stability. So Algeria can help with this side, political stability. So strengthening international cooperation among gas exporting countries can contribute to political stability by fostering dialogue between them and understanding among nations with shared economic interests. So this can help prevent conflicts and tensions between them that may arise from competition over energy resources.
Exactly, yeah, perfectly understood. So, Mr. Gharbi, Algeria has mobilized all the human, logistical, and material resources for the smooth running and the success of the summit under the leadership of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. What is the real significance of this summit for Algeria in particular and for the rest of the world in general?
Okay, so the significance of the Gas Summit for Algeria under the leadership of Mr. President Abdelmajid Tebboune can be understood in both sides. The first one, domestic side. Economic opportunities. Algeria is one of the world's leading exporters of natural gas, as Algeria now current production gas is 130 billion cubic meters annually, of which it exports 50 billion cubic meters. And Mr. President said we're going to export until 2028 100 billion cubic meters. So in the side of economic opportunities, Algeria is like to showcase its resources and attract investment in its energy sector by hosting and actively participating in the summit. Algeria can strengthen its position as a key player in the global gas market and potentially secure beneficial trade agreements with other participating nations. And diplomatic influence. So hosting a major international summit like the Gas Forum allows Algeria to enhance its diplomatic influence and stature on the world stage by demonstrating its ability to convene and facilitate discussions among gas exporting countries. Algeria can position itself as a mediator and a peacemaker in region and a global affairs, thereby increasing its geopolitical relevance. And in the side of energy security, for example, so the summit provides an opportunity for Algeria to engage in discussions about energy security and cooperation with other gas exporting nations by collaborating on issues such as infrastructure development, supply diversification, and technology sharing. Algeria can contribute to efforts to ensure stable and reliable energy supplies for both itself and the rest of the world. And the side, for example, the side of the rest of the world, the significance of the summit lies in its potential to foster greater cooperation and collaboration among gas exporting nations, thereby promoting energy security, economic development, for example, environmental sustainable investments in this site is very important now for all the rest of the world.
Yeah, especially amid the volatility of the gas market. That is prevailing in the world. So, Mr. Gharbi, you have mentioned most of them, but what will be the main outcomes of the summit? Or in other words, the points of agreement among the participating countries?
Yes. In fact, so global gas market, it's completely different, for example, from the oil market. For example, I think in this aspect, so this forum is completely different from OPEC, for example, cartel, because oil prices are changed rapidly every day, whereas gas depends on long-term contracts that makes the big difference between the two cartels. If you say this forum is a cartel, I think it's completely different from, for example, OPEC cartel. But Algeria wants to make this forum maybe one of their decisions they are going to discuss about, maybe to make this forum an international organization. And maybe why not to make them in the future a cartel like OPEC, but in some another sites, not the sites of, for example, the side of production or the side of determining the price.
Exactly.
There are another sites we can work about. For example, the infrastructure investment. So the discussion at the summit may lead to agreements on investments in gas infrastructure, such as pipelines and liquefied natural gas, LNG, for example. Imported infrastructure can enhance the flexibility and the efficiency of gas transportation, reducing, for example, disruption, market volatility, and reducing the risk of the market in the long term period. For example, gas exporting countries may use this summit to explore strategies, new strategies, how to work with the volatility in the spot market. Yes, we have the spot market because the spot market is the market where you can buy and sell gas in the same day, so not long term. So in the short term, yes,
not
in
on
the
the
short
long
term,
run.
yes, and the spot market, yes, we can work in this side and this point in the spot market. And Algeria is went to the spot market this year and the last year, 2023, and yes, Algeria worked with the spot market. So becoming now is important for Algeria and for the rest of other countries to go to the spot market, not just for long-term contracts between importing and exporting countries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Hisham Gharbi, I thank you very much for this interview, rich interview. I recall that you are a professor specialized in international financial markets at the University of Al-Wad here in Algeria. So, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to be with you, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure, Mr. Gharbi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.